It's that time again.
Welcome fans of flip clocks to this instructional video regarding how to turn your Panasonic RC-6025, the Groundhog Day flip clock, into a clock that alarms to that song. Before we do that though, I've got to tell you, I do not recommend this modification. I'm going to warn you, do not do this. This is how I did it, but there's real risks involved in this. There's a risk of electrocution when you mess with one of these vintage clocks. You could cause a house fire if you do something wrong, or even if you do it right. You could destroy your equipment, either the clock or the module. All these problems could lead to your death or the death of someone you love. So I'm going to recommend that you just do not mess with this clock. It's not worth it. The clock's better the way it is, vintage and normal. But anyway, the main thing is you could be disappointed with the results, and a lot of people do not want a clock that's been modified. But here is how I did it. This is the parts list. You need a continuity tester to make sure the change we've done will work. You need a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver to get the clock apart. You need a soldering iron and some rosin core solder. You need some wire. 22 gauge works, any kind of wire, a rotary tool, and a bit that will remove material. You need a small drill bit, and some small clamps will really help you out. And this is the clock after it's been disassembled. We're not going to go into disassembly. If you need to go ahead and figure that out or look up how to do that. The heart of the matter is the sound module, and this is a very inexpensive sound module, and believe it or not, it's actually for greeting cards. It's made by a company that has a lot of products like this, and there'll be a link in the description below. But this module is inexpensive. At the time of the making of this video, it was less than $10. You'll pay a little bit more for shipping. Comes from Canada. They're fairly quick on the shipping. What you've got here is onboard batteries. You've got the buttons. You can load up to 5 songs on this. And they're momentary buttons. You press them, which is important. The music, you're going to get this off the internet somewhere, the sound clip that you want to use. How to get that on the board is not part of this instructional video. You'll have to go to the website of the manufacturer of this board to find out how to do that. So there's this tab here, of course, has to come out to allow it to play. There's your speaker. The speaker is wired straight into the board. You could wire some wires right off the board into your own speaker. I'd really recommend you use this speaker first to see what it sounds like. It's not bad. Again, the battery's here. If you wanted to take those out, and you must take them out to do this, you could wire in positive and negative for 4.5 volts to power this board if you wanted to use a battery pack. Again, you're not going to play it that much. There's our company to get our module. So before we go any further, we've got to explain how this works a little bit to see what we're doing. That's how you turn the radio on. That little white bar moves in and activates the radio for just radio play. Now, when you set this alarm to go off to buzzer, you'll see the same bar moves all the way in, and that sets the buzzer off. This is set to alarm to music, and it basically turns it on as it did when you turned the switch to turn the radio on. So once again, that's the radio on, and this is when you set it to go off to alarm. So it's an electromechanical switch. We're going to alter that switch so that it becomes a simple on switch. Whenever that bar is pressed in, that is going to set off the sound module. So we've turned over the little circuit board here. I'm going to show you the modifications that we're going to make. The 2 areas we're going to work on here on the left, this is going to be modified, and over here on the right, you're going to modify the circuit board. So in this area right here, there's 2 things that you have to do. First, you have to disconnect those 2. You're going to remove some material, and then you're going to drill a hole there to allow a wire to be soldered in. Over here on the right, we're going to need to basically disconnect those 2 there. Both of these things have to be done. This will not interrupt any other part of your clock. And then over here on the left, you see these 2 parts here, that's going to become a switch. So we've got on the board already, we've got the red wire here. We're going to follow that back to the circuit board. That needs to come off because that's what's sending the signal over to make that buzzer sound. So that needs to come out, and we're actually going to use that wire as part of our switch. So if you flip over here, that comes out right there. That is where you need to put your soldering iron. Warm that up. Try not to mess up your lines there. Pull that wire out, and then you see there's a small hole there that doesn't go all the way through. We're going to drill that out. That's going to be our second wire for the switch. Now, after I did that, I see that it got down into this too far. So that's not going to work. I won't be able to make a line separating those two. They need to be separate. Those two need to be connected down there so the radio will work. But I'm going to go ahead and re-drill. That kind of gives me an idea where I need to go. I won't show you me drilling, but here's the result. And so we've got right here is where I'm going to put my wire, and I'll solder it in there. But before I do that, I need to go ahead and cut this down to separate those two before I can solder in. So we're using the little bit here to remove some material. You've got to take your time with this. Let the tool do the work. Do not get in a hurry. If you mess this up, you're going to have a big mess. To try to resolder those lines to get everything working again, it's just going to be a mess. I've done this more than once, so you need to practice a little bit. If you haven't done anything like this, just take your time and get that separated out. Okay. We just have to have that line there. You have to be able to see the circuit board through there. There. It's not touching anymore. And you see where I'll be able to put there's the separation. I'll be able to put a wire there and solder it into that line there. Since we're here, we'll go ahead and do part 2. We have to disconnect these 2 points here. That point is going to this resistor over here, and it does not need to be sending its signal over, so it needs to come off. It's not going to work right if you don't do that. It doesn't affect the operation of the clock in any other way, but that must be disconnected. Now you do just a little bit of disconnection. That way, when you realize that you shouldn't have done it, you can go back and convert this back to a regular clock. There's our nice little separation right there. Nothing else to be done on that side. So everything's now remaining to be done on the left side. So we'll go ahead and insert my wire. You probably should use stranded wire. I just had some solid wire. It actually is going to work out pretty good for me. Again, it's just a switch. The stranded wire is just going to be able to be moved around a little better inside your clock when you're putting this all back together. But now, when you're soldering to this old circuit board, you got to get that wire and the circuit board warmed up pretty good for it to take the solder. If you don't pre-warm that up like I'm doing here, it won't take it. And you see right there, it almost didn't want to take it. And there it did. It went ahead and incorporated that into the circuit board. And that's a fairly good soldering job there. You want to make sure there's a separation there, and there is. And there's our 2 leads. This is our continuity tester. This is going to allow us to test to make sure that these 2 leads are now going to function as a switch to turn our module on. So we'll get this hooked up. The good thing about that module is that it's an on-off button, and it'll just simply turn on and play once. So let's test this here. Alright, you see that when I push that bar all the way over to the alarm section, alarm side there, I mean, it sounds the continuity tester, and we'll go ahead and operate the alarm function here, and there it is. You can see that it functions the way it should. It makes that switch good. So here we go, the module installation. What you need to do is you're going to have to cut these wires here and wire them to those 2 wires, the red and the green in this case. Of course, remove that tab. That doesn't need to be there. And then you need to secure it in your clock. I would use hot glue. You got to keep it away from all the other components. Don't let it move around in there. The extras, which I do not recommend, but you can wire right into the clock speaker. It'll come out right at the top of your clock. It sounds pretty good that way. You can wire in a battery pack if you so choose, if you think you'll play it that much, but it's hard to solder into this board. You have to take those batteries out if you do that, or else you're going to have some major issues. This modification will be discussed in detail at FlipClockFans, so if you get a chance, come visit us.
When you get the time, come visit us at FlipClockFans.com.